The Source Dragon icons have slowly but surely become one of the more important aspects of all of Dragon's Rising. They've been around since the very beginning, but now as of Season 4 Part 1, the importance of them is definitely at the forefront, as it is ultimately Raz's end goal and something that the ninja are officially conscious of. But considering their importance, we actually know so little about them beyond their actual usage, and in terms of the known icons, there are still things that we don't even know, even in terms of their own appearance. But as of now, we actually do know of 5 of the 7 Source Dragon icons, and they all are fairly interesting and leave a lot to speculation. So join me today as I go through all of the Source Dragon icons, the known ones and the unknown ones, talk about what we understand about them, what we don't understand about them, and fill out the gaps in between. And like always, I want to know what you guys think of them. Do you agree with the theories that I'm going to bring up today? Do you agree with the things that we already know about them? Also, what's your favorite Source Dragon icon? Is there one that you don't like so far? There are so many things about them that we just simply do not know. So that is why I want to hear from you guys, because ultimately I'm just curious on what you guys are thinking. But beyond all of that, let me not waste any more of your time and let's talk about the Source Dragon icons. But before we get into the specific Source Dragon icons, what do we know about all of the Source Dragon icons? That is their name, or they're also called just simply the Dragon icons. They are sacred artifacts that take the form of weapons, and dependent on the icon, they have the ability to summon a specific Source Dragon into the merged realms. However, they are only able to be used once, after which the weapon will no longer exist. They are some of the very few items that have the ability to generate Source Dragon energy, albeit not that much, and it's more or less just simply sparks, but it seems to be that Source Dragon energy actually channels itself into the weapon and gives something by the name of a Dragon Energy Strike. The weapons are extremely powerful and have been shown to be able to take down the likes of dragons. The main one we've seen be able to do this is actually Rontu. You can create them currently by 3 different methods. There may be more, but we have not seen them shown beyond this point. The first method is a Source Dragon gives it themselves. This is actually how we see one of the Source Dragon icons become into the world, that actually being the Source Dragon Emotions icon. The second option is the Cauldron of Realms, and this is by the combination of various elemental powers. When this is done, you can reach through to the Source Dragons and actually get an icon through there. The last known method is actually created using the Forge of the Forgotten. This is a forge that is within the underworld, and with Source Dragon energy and a sacrifice, you can actually completely circumvent the need of elemental abilities and generate enough energy to forge a new Source Dragon icon. This is distinctly the most twisted way and potentially the unintended way to get an icon, but it still does produce the same ones nonetheless. The next question about all of the icons is simply, have we ever actually seen them or been told that they have been used? And yes, that is in fact the case. One icon is known to have been used, and that is the Source Dragon of Energy's icon, and that is how the Source Dragon of Energy, or the mortal avatar of the Source Dragon, actually ended up underneath Imperium in the first season of Dragon's Rising. That doesn't mean the icon of energy cannot be made once more though, as they are simply able to be made in more senses down the line, but like I said, that is the only instance where one has actually been used as far as we are aware. There are 2 other main bits of information that we do know about all of the Source Dragon icons. For one, the Source Dragon icon, when used by someone, it does not grant the person who used it complete control over the Source Dragons. We do know for a fact that they do not have to obey the person if they are summoned. The other thing that we do know is that a Source Dragon icon can be destroyed, but it's not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination. It has never been specified as to how you would do it and what type of strength it would take. It's just simply something that can be done. Whether or not the ninja will actually ever realize this though is something else. But with all of the information that we have about all of the Source Dragon icons out of the way, we can actually now go into the more specifics when it does come to the icons. And I'm going to go from the icons that we know the most about to the ones that we know the least about. So starting off, we're going to look at the Source Dragon of Strength icon. This is the dual hammer that we actually see Raz utilize throughout the entirety of Dragon's Rising. We do not actually know how he got this Source Dragon specifically, but it does seem to be that he just had it at some point prior to to the merge, and he has never utilized it in summoning the Source Dragon, so he has used it as his primary weapon ever since. This hammer is extremely strong. There are so many abilities that it actually has that are really weird to think about. Enhanced Strength is one of the main ones, giving the user the ability to counter even more powerful moves than the hammer actually is itself. The main one that we know it's able to counter is Spinjitzu and also Shatter Spin. The other thing that we know it has is the ability to actually shock spirits, as Raz utilizes it to shock the spirits of the temple. And lastly, it has the ability to give the user an enhanced durability, which is the reason why Raz is so proficient within a fight. Interestingly, it's actually also the only Source Dragon icon that has appeared within the show before actually being named a Source Dragon icon. Like I said, Raz has had it since the literal first episode of Dragons Rising, but it wasn't until Fallen Wishes where Raz actually reveals the fact that it is a Source Dragon icon. It is presumed that it wasn't initially meant to be, but that's never actually been confirmed. As far as we're aware, the method that it was created was also with the abilities of elemental powers. We do not know which powers or when it would have happened, but it's seemingly the way it was done because it was the only way Raz was aware in terms of the creation of Source Dragon icons until the episode Their Draconic Majesty's Request. So, by all accounts, some elemental masters were responsible for this icon being created. Because there's just not too much to speculate about in terms of this icon, the last thing I'm going to mention is that whilst it does resemble a hammer, it actually does coincide a lot with what we know about Cole. Obviously, a hammer being Cole's main weapon, and being from the Source Dragon of Strength, which is the Source Dragon in charge of the Earth Elemental Power, it does seem to have a lot of inherent links, and that is actually going to be something that we move forth with, because it does seem to be that the icons do correspond with the ninja that the weapon is based off of. But that is the Source Dragon icon of Strength, and like I said, there's just not really much else to talk about with it. The Source Dragon icon of Motion is next up. It is the second one that we know the most about, even though we actually know barely anything about it. But this icon takes on the appearance of a smaller dagger, and it's also not specified what it can truly do. The only things that we actually know about it is what we know about the rest of the Source Dragon icons, being able to summon the Source Dragon of Motion. Its current whereabouts are not actually specified, but by all accounts it's most likely going to be within the monastery of Spinjitzu. The last time we saw it was within the monastery when Lloyd was given the icon by the Source Dragon of Motion, and we have not seen it since. This is obviously going to be something that comes up much later on, and is something that most likely will come up within Season 4 Part 2, but we don't actually have clarification on that. Considering that this icon is based on a dagger is fitting, like I said, in accordance with the hammer resembling Cole, because this dagger belonging to Motion actually fits in a lot with Kai. Not even just the fact that it's a red blade and Kai is the red ninja, but Motion is the Source Dragon in control of fire, so it does continue on this theme. But as far as we're aware, that is basically all we know about it. This was the only other way that we actually did discover about creation of Source Dragon icons though, because this is how the Source Dragon of Motion gave it to Lloyd, by removing one of her scales. But here is the beginning of where things do get difficult. The next one up is the Source Dragon icon of Energy. We know a few things about this icon, and now presumably what it looks like. This is the only image that we have of what is presumably the Source Dragon icon of Energy. This thing was shown within the video game Dragon Adventures. It is worth note that this is not considered a canon game, but the thing is that this is the only depiction we've ever actually seen of it. We don't know if this is the final appearance, but as far as we're aware, we have to run with it. We do also know that this is the icon that Raz used, obviously within Season 1 of Dragons Rising. Presumably he is the only known user of it as well. But the thing is that as far as we're aware, another one can be made at some point, but we just simply don't know when. I will say though, it is a bit of a shame that this one is the icon of Energy, because whilst it still can coincide with the icons being linked to the ninja theory, it does seem to be the loosest one of the bunch. Being the icon of Energy means that it is linked to Jay, but it doesn't resemble any of the weapons that Jay has actually used, mainly the nunchucks or the flail that he's used within the 11-minute era. But you can argue that it does have some resemblance to the lightning daggers that Jay has been using throughout his time as Rogue and since becoming not Rogue. So it still does fit. just not the most comfortable of the bunch. But still, this is all we know about this icon. Do I think this is going to be the final appearance of it? Maybe, but maybe not. We don't actually know the answer to it. But as far as we're aware, this is it. But this is where things will become a lot more difficult, because now we only have icons left that don't have a name or don't have an appearance. So we're going to start off with the blade that we have seen Raz use that he forged himself in Season 3. This blade doesn't actually have the Source Dragon specified, and as far as we're aware, there has been no major implication as to what it is. We also don't really know what it does. We know that it has similar abilities to all of the other icons, and it was a weapon that was used to take down Rontu, but that is about it. We can only really assume that it's just something that holds a great amount of strength. But which Source Dragon does it actually belong to? Well, considering that we know what 3 of them are, that leaves us with the options of Life, Focus, Flow, and Balance. And there is some speculation as to which it could be, and all of them do have some backing behind it. But I do think that the most likely candidate that it is the one of the Source Dragon of Life. If we continue through with our theory that the weapons do resemble the ninja that it corresponds with, this blade is the most similar to Lloyd's Deo blade that we've seen him have since Season 8. This would also just simply coincide with the fact that it is just a very strong looking weapon and a very large looking sword. There is no other real basis beyond that. There have been some sort of speculation that it could potentially belong to Balance, but we don't actually know. Honestly, I think the most likely of the bunch is going to be Life. I actually initially thought it was Energy. But that's it for that icon. We're going to have to move on to the next one, because there's just truly nothing else we really know about these ones. The next one is going to be the other one that we've seen, but not actually named. And it is the bow that we saw at the end of Season 4 Part 1. This bow has even less known about it, because it literally shares maybe 3 scenes. It's just nothing going on with it. But the thing is that I do think we have a good idea on who it could actually belong to. Following through with the theory that the weapons resemble the Source Dragon that it comes from in accordance with the ninja, a bow is the most linked to Zane. It is the weapon that he used throughout the Oni trilogy, and he also used it during Master of the Mountain. Of course, he utilizes shurikens now, but honestly, that's fine. I think this is the one that will be for Zane, which means that the bow will belong to the Source Dragon of Focus. It also makes sense for it to be focused with a bow, because it does require concentration to be able to aim the bow at your opponent. So with all of that in mind, I believe that this is going to be it. But that leaves us with only 2 more. 2 icons are left to be accounted for, and they are the ones that we quite literally have nothing about. Those are going to be the icons that belong to the Source Dragon of Balance and the Source Dragon of Flow. And I actually think I have an answer to both of these icons. To start off with the Source Dragon of Flow, I believe that the icon will take the form of a spear, because one of the main weapons that the ninja use that actually does fall under Flow is Nia, being the elemental power of water. So I believe that it will actually have that form to coincide with it. How it's created, it could be any way possible. We do not know the nature of how Raz is now creating icons. So it does seem to be that it could appear in any sort of sense, but I do believe the spear will be the answer. And then as for the Source Dragon of Balance, I believe that the Source Dragon of Balance's icon will take on the form of a staff. I believe this actually is going to stem back to Wu, because one thing that's always been clarified within Ninjago is the concept of balance, and there is nothing more balanced out in terms of a weapon than something that is identical on both sides. A staff has also been used to represent balance by Wu in March of the Oni, so I believe that that is going to be the form that that one does take. But again, in terms of its creation, I simply do not know. But with all of that done, that is all of the Source Dragon icons, what we know about them and what we don't know. Of course, I can't speculate on the specific abilities of all of the icons because we simply do not know the answer. But in terms of what they look like and who they may belong to, this is my personal best interpretation when it does come to the answer. I may always be wrong and you may disagree with me, but that is why I want to officially pass it off to you guys. Do you agree with my stance on each of the icons and who they belong to and the form that they may take? Or do you disagree with me? And if so, I would love to know your interpretation of it down below. I'm very curious, and the icons are definitely becoming more and more important, so I do think it's a good time to discuss them through. But besides that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people, and if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and join the legends that you see on screen. Each of you, your support truly means the absolute world to me, and I cannot thank you enough. But apart from that, like I said, that is about it for today, and take care. Okay,